Okay.
We're recording.
Cool. We're recording.
So the first thing I would like you to do is if you could just tell me your name, first and last, and then spell your last name.
Sure. Noah Bozansky, last name spelled Boksandsky.
So how are you doing today, Noah?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic.
So the purpose of this interview is to sort of get some general background information on Camp Stigwandish
Sure.
for the documentary that we're doing. This documentary is going to be sort of more of a human interest story and sort of talking about how people have been reacting since the news came out and that type of thing rather
Sure.
than a history of the camp or a memoir.
Awesome.
But that being said, I'm going to sort of use this interview as a way to get some background information since you're sort of quite knowledgeable about the camp and a lot of the history that goes on with the camps in this area.
Sure.
So can you start by telling me a little bit about like your background and your relation to the camp?
Yeah, sure. So I started, I would have attended Camp Stigwandish for the first time in, I want to say 2007 or 2008, as a scout in my troop. I did a lot of time. I spent a lot of time there with my Cub Scout pack in the early 2000s as well. So I've been camping there for a long time, and just I have a lot of memories, kind of growing up there.
So could you sort of tell me about what it was like to be there as a scout and sort of
Sure. So I guess thinking about the first times I went camping away from home, some of them were at indoor places or inside a cabin, but I would say my first few experiences of really being away from home, like in the outdoors, really in a spot like where I was like, wow, where am I? Most of those would have happened at Stigwandish, which is really like cool to look back on.
And so how old were you when the first time that it was sort of being considered to be closed?
Sure. That would have been around 2010 or 2011, so I was around 15, 16. So I was an older...
So before we go any further, can you
Yeah.
rephrase sort of the question in your answer?
So like saying the first time the camp, the first time I had heard the camp was considering...
yeah, just
okay.
in some way that way we sort of have some context as to what you're talking about.
Sure. So the first time that I had heard the camp was up for potentially closing or part of it being closed was around the year 2011. So I was around 16 years old.
And can you give me a background as to sort of why that was the case, what the context with that was with the council and everything?
Sure. From what I understood back then, and thinking about it now, the context there was that the camp hadn't been running as a full, summer program for 5 years at that point. The last time that it had been a, full week summer camp for an entire summer was 2006. So it wasn't hosting that anymore, and there were some facilities problems, like I know the water was an issue and things like that.
Okay.
I mean, because I don't know, like,
Yeah.
like, so if this is supposed to be like, not
You can slant it. I mean, you can.
okay, because this isn't going in the thing, so
in
it
line,
doesn't really
and
matter.
any sort of background that I can, give to them. And if you throw shade at GWRC,
Yeah.
that's fine, because that part might not necessarily make it in.
Right. I just like, especially because you're gonna be doing something with this.
Yeah.
I don't want to put stuff in there that I don't 100% know the facts on because I don't.
Okay.
Like I know what I heard,
Yeah.
so if I phrase it like that,
Yeah, I think that's fine. That's actually smart.
okay.
So sort of going based off of what you heard, what was it like with scouting and your experience at the time with sort of all of this going on?
Sure. So based on what I had heard from the different adult leaders that I worked with, and other people that I had known at that.
Now that I'm done wasting everybody's time.
Oh, you're fine, Grace.
That happens. All right, so I'm gonna sit here as you talk to me as though we're just having a chat about Camp Stigwandish, although I'm like 10 feet away.
That
so
is
like-
okay. I've done this.
All right, cool.
I've done this once or twice.
Really? All right.
My name's Anthony Dworning, Anthony Dworning, Kent State alumni, and I'm Communications Executive with the Boy Scouts of America, Camp Director of Camp Stigwandish, Outpost Director of Beaumont Scout Reservation that operates the program at Camp Stigwandish, and Event Chairman.
And how do you feel about all of that?
How do I feel about everything I've done for Camp Stigwandish?
Well, actually, we'll get to that. I mean, let's just sort of start. I actually kind of want to start more at the beginning.
Okay.
So, like, I know that you love Camp Stigwandish.
I do.
But, like, what's your background with it? Because, like, why is that? Where does all that come from?
So, Grace, I started camping at Camp Stigwandish actually back in 2001. I joined Cub Scouts, Pack 67 out of Leroy, and our first camp out was at Camp Stigwandish. And we ended up going out there. My dad was working nights at the time, so he would come out later in the daytime. And so my friend's, Chris's dad, Brian, ended up driving us out to Camp Stigwandish. I remember the drive pretty vividly. There's a couple of big hills from my house to where camp is. And I was like, where in the world are we going, right? So I ended up getting to camp, and we stayed at Kit Carson campsite, which is one in the west end of camp. And it was a great time. However, we were meeting the troop at the time, which is the troop that I eagled out of, Troop 165, out of Paynesville. And we ended up, they stayed at Pop Quarry, and it was a Weeblos Woods, and I didn't know what the heck a Weeblos Woods was at that time, but we ended up going to the Weeblos Woods and participating in the events. But one of the biggest memories from that weekend that I remember is it was a hotter weekend, right? And you know, Ohio in October doesn't get extremely warm, especially back then, but it was a good 70 degrees, 80 degrees. So the troop was really annoyed with the Cub Scouts, like most troops are, and they were like, oh no, what are we going to do with these Cub Scouts? So we ended up going into Mill Creek, which is the creek that runs through Camp Stigwandish, and ended up damming it up. Like, all the Cub Scouts like got all these rocks. There was this big guy, like, I'm a pretty big dude right now, but I mean, he was a big guy, and his name was Charlie, and he sat there and held the water back as this rock dam was surprisingly holding up, right? And when the rock dam held up, and Charlie would then go through this like water slide that we made in Mill Creek, because it's a nice smooth bed. It's all shale. And then all of us Cub Scouts sat behind Charlie, just flew through that little corridor we had in the dam. So that's my first memory of Camp Stigwandish. In 2005, I bridged over to Troop 165 as a scout. And as most first-year scouts act, they didn't want to go to camp, right? Shocking. I was no different. So I ended up missing my first year of summer camp at Camp Stigwandish, which is probably one of my biggest regrets, right? So in 2006, I got to attend Camp Stigwandish for summer camp, and I took the first-year program, which they call Brown Sea, swimming, wilderness survival, and fly fishing. Don't ask me why a first-year scout was taking fly fishing, but darn, I wanted to do it. So I took those merit badges. I stayed in Needles Nest. We had about 22 scouts attend. I ended up meeting Friday night was family night, and so we were gathering around the campfire circle for family night, which is at the Bear, which is still at Camp Stigwandish today. He has no face, but that's okay. And I ended up seeing my cousin Joni, which is my mom's second cousin. So she's a little older, like my mom's age. And I ended up finding out that my cousin was my Brown Sea instructor, and Kevin Wassey was my first year Brown Sea instructor. And so that was the first time I met him, and then I didn't get to see him again until his wedding in 2014. So then we went from gaps, and now we work together. So it's kind of fun. So that's kind of my backstory with Camp Stigwandish. Later, after 2006, we were once again there for Weeblos Woods, stayed in the Dan Beard campsite. It's an awful site, by the way. And we got news that the camp would close due to a gray water system, and would close down summer camp operations. So that was my first and only summer camp there. Did a lot of weekend camping there, did a lot of Weeblos Woods, and then starting in 2016, I ended up as an event chair. And I've chaired almost every district event for the Grand River District until districts were absolved, and then I started serving as a Service Area 1 event chair.
So going back a little bit to 2006, what was it like, and sort of what was the reaction with your troop when you found out that they'd no longer be having summer camp at Stick?
So that was funny. Joe Dolan.
So before, let me cut you off.
Stop talking with my hands.
Just stop slapping them together. You can move them, but like every time they hit, we hear it.
Sorry,
So
I
just-
apologize.
That's all. But
Um,
you're doing great.
Thank you. So